Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to our April edition of our Lunch and Learn. Looks like we have a pretty good turnout today. We'll have a few others join us. Hey, just remember for housekeeping that within Zoom, use the chat. If you have questions, I'm sure Dana will welcome them. If you run into any challenges, just let me know and I'll see what I can do. But we're going to hear from Dana Bowlin today. Dana is going to be talking about tracking success, the role of data in project leadership. Dana is a seasoned technology leader with extensive experience leading projects, products, and programs across various industries. She's held key roles at Warner Brothers, Disney, CenturyLink, and many others, where she's driving innovation and transformation in areas including video streaming and solar energy. She is currently the director of IT at Clenera, where they are leading the construction of solar projects all over the United States. Based on her professional endeavors, Dana is passionate about mentoring, supporting women in STEM fields. She dedicates her free time to gardening and coaching girls lacrosse. So with that, let me welcome Dana to our Lunch and Learn. Dana, take it from here.
All right. Well, thank you, Brian.
All right.
I also get the awesome opportunity of being very excited to be here. I wanna start with a little bit about me. I love pictures. You'll see through the slide deck. I love visual representations of things, but a little about me. Married. We live here in Meridian. My husband, he loves shoveling snow with shorts on constantly. He has not transitioned to the Boise weather. I have 3 kids, ages 22 to 13, 2 dogs who you may hear doing parkour in the other room. I try to keep them out, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. I think one of the other things that best represents that kind of bottom picture is I love putting puzzles together. And you'll see the wall is literally wallpapered with puzzles in my office. And I've always been that way. And I think that that's kind of what motivates me when I talk about tech. It's what motivates me when I talk about projects and what they mean. It motivates me in regards to like how I build things and what they look like. And it's kind of driven my career and kind of where I got to with a little bit about why I'm presenting this. So I started off as a developer in technology because I loved building tech, right? And at one point, I couldn't move up in a field, I couldn't move up in a company, and I had a boss who said, "You really should get into project management." And this was, I'll age myself, it was 25 years ago. The PMI still issued numbers. You know, when you like logged in, you didn't have an email, you had a number that you logged into. And it was a welcome, like, well, how do you take what you were doing in technology and development and like, how do you build something, but in a different concept, in a different way, right? And you can still build it using project management methodology, but like, what does that look like? And that's kind of where my career started in project management. I will say I have worked for some very cool companies. I've also worked for 6 startups now. And so the idea of taking project management methodologies at the time was kind of like, well, how do you merge those with Agile? And how do you apply them to kind of a startup mindset and not maybe an enterprise mindset? And what does that look like? One of my first startup jobs, I remember I got as a project manager, and my boss told me, "Well, I don't know why we're hiring a project manager." but like, I don't know what you're going to do for me, right? And I remember just being like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for you? Let's just see, right? And he's since hired me at 3 other startups and now knows what a project manager can help him with, but that's a different story. Um, but I like to lead with that because I really think like, as I started to grow in that career, it really became not about what a project manager does, but really about what is project leadership, right? And like, where can that take us? And as I was building this deck, I remember going out and searching, like, what is project leadership? Can you define it, right? And you go out to PMI, and PMI has like some really good research papers on what does it mean to have great project leadership, right? Kind of says essentials. Well, you need ownership of the project. You need to be focusing on the long term. You need to be building high performance teams. These are all things that we've heard about, right? That we've read, that we can see in our day to day, right? I like the one, there's a direct linkage between project success and effective leadership. We've seen that. We've seen the management teams that are maybe not ethical, maybe not trustworthy. We've seen team members that are like that. Like once you've been in project management, you've seen a little of everything, right? So what does it mean to me? What does project leadership really mean to me? Um, and in the end, as I started to kind of look through like all of the things I've done and where I was most impactful, as far as a product or a project I was working on or a program maybe that I was leading, I really came to the conclusion that like it's about what the enduring impact you as a project manager, or maybe you as a team member, or you as a leader, right, are making on that project, right? And I'd like to challenge you and say, like as we start to go through this, what does that mean to you? What could that look like on your project? I will tell you one of the ways that this represents to me is, I don't know, there's probably some March Madness fans on the call today. I worked on and my team led the products that enable you to video stream March Madness, and had for the last 10 years now. And so when I think about like an enduring impact I made to a project, like that's something I helped build, right? And that's cool to me. And like, how did we help build it? And how did we transform? And what did that mean? And what does it mean to you watching that and not, not having your video stream go down in the middle of the present or the middle of the game, right? But we can't just get there overnight. So like, what does this leadership mean? And like, what are some tangible ways I can build project leadership? And I can kind of tie it to data and ways to build my team up and have that enduring impact and actually know what that enduring impact is, because sometimes we may not know. So let's have some fun here. We've all felt like this afraid rope, I bet, right? Where we've had this happen on our team or our project or at your company where like it just feels like everyone is button heads or everyone is frayed, right? And everyone like maybe we're not collaborating right. Maybe things are not coming in as we expected from a time item, right? Productivity is down. We can't figure out why. Our KPIs, or maybe we don't have KPIs, right? Are telling us like something's going on. Our gut as a PM is telling us something's going on. So why do we think that is? I'm gonna open it up. I will say poor communication is the first one. What about y'all? You want to put something in the chat? What do you guys see is happening when this starts happening, when tensions start raising in your company and things aren't happening on our projects? Oh, changing priorities. Yeah. Unclear of the vision. Ooh, yes, one of my favorites. Lack of clarity on scope. Yeah. Lack of resources. Oh, Jamie, you got my favorite one. I feel like, like lack of resources everyone has. I wish there was that true thing around, can you write a blank check for me? Where's the blank check? Because I really would like that one. Leadership changes. Yep. People having too much to do and context switching. Oh, Brian, right on target. Yes. Right. So if I look at these, like these are the ones that I wrote down, right? A lot of the same things you did, right? Resource scarcity, unclear roles, disagreement on path forward. I like that one. Differing work styles, right? Lack of trust. Lots of good ones. All right, so how do we take these and we look at like, okay, well, this project may be going off the rails, and how do I lead through this, and what does this look like, and how can I kind of quantify it, right? And make it feel like maybe we can rethink how we're doing things so that we can change the outcomes of this. So I like to say, well, what does this have to do with data and project leadership? So I want you to think about one of those projects, and I want you to think about how you're getting the information on it. And is it built like this? Right? Is it built like you're not sure what the foundation is, but we've pieced together things from the project. Maybe we've made changes halfway through and we're like, oh, we should measure this now, or we should measure that. And we've thrown it all together. Or maybe a leader has come forward and gone like, oh, you should all switch to Agile, or oh, you should switch to, Waterfall, or you guys should do something in the middle that I like to call Scrumafall, right? Like, does it look like this, right? I've worked for a lot of startups, right, where you come on board and you go, oh my gosh, this is what I have. Or maybe it's even worse, like maybe there's like only one little hairpin at the bottom holding together all of the things that the teams are doing, and they're being very reactionary, and they're not understanding, okay, what happens when that little hairpin is removed, right? So I like to say, like, okay, how do we rethink that and rethink what we've built, right? And I like to say, okay, once we can start to rethink what we've built, how can we slow down to speed up, right? There's an author, Peter Senge, who wrote this about how to understand complex situations, right? And the expression, I think, is really go slow to go fast, that he writes in his book. But it's really about kind of that discipline of like, okay, let's slow down, let's rethink what that looks like, and then let's speed up to do that. All right. And then I would say, once we start to think about that, the other part about this is like, okay, let's slow down and speed up, but then let's start doing something. And I think it's Simon Sinek that's like, got the quotes out there also that says the hardest part is just starting, right? But I also would say the hardest part is starting, and starting simply, right? Because I think sometimes, especially in the project management world, we get tied around like, okay, I'm going to start this, but maybe I want to start gathering data about my project, and I need all of these things to do that. And I would question, do you, right? And so we're going to go through the next few slides are going to be very like tactical, like how would you take on changing your data and the things and the vision and the accountability that you're doing on your projects, and rethinking that. And very simply doing it, not in a complex way. I will also say that I've done a lot of these processes in different organizations. So please ask questions. Please raise your hand, and we can open the chat. But like very simple ways to start talking about accountability, about how do I make my project better, about how do I make it more transparent so people know the vision, they know roles and responsibilities. So with that, how do we start? Well, let's start at the beginning. Ooh, how many of you all know your mission, values, and goals for your company, for your team? Anyone? Anyone? These ones I went and grabbed off the internet. Like, I could probably go grab St. Luke's or someone's. Ooh, Rachel knows them. If you notice the very bottom one, that one is from our local chapter here. So our mission is to advance the practice and profession of project management. And the vision of the PMI Western Idaho chapters be recognized as a source of project management knowledge and expertise, right? I like to say we have to start here. So if we're resetting, right, and we're going back to our foundation, we have to start here with what is our mission and our goal and our values, right? And this doesn't have to be a huge, like rack spaces, it's one line, right? Be valued members of a winning team on an inspiring mission. I love that. It's very simple. Sometimes people will say, well, it's too ambiguous. I don't know enough, but it's also very simple. What is an inspiring mission to me? How can I be a valued member on that team, right? Oh, fortunate to work for an org that lives and breathes them. I love that, Megan. That's awesome. Cleveland clinics also, right, contribute to excellent patient care by providing comprehensive, high-quality laboratory testing. The mission is supported innovative research and new test development, exceptional customer service. Ooh, love that too, right? Continuous quality improvement, leadership, and education, right? So these are ones that normally are already existing, right? And we can take those and start to build on them. So I know I saw Karen a little earlier on our group, but like, let's say we took that and we said, okay, well, let's build a strategy for how we would get there. And this is totally made up, so please don't, quote it as our Western Idaho chapters one. This is totally made up, but like, what would that look like? What would your strategy look like? And this could be an example of one, right? I take the top one as my value and I say, okay, I'm going to advance project management profession in practice in the Treasure Valley. Well, how am I going to do that, right? What strategies am I going to enable to do that? The funny part is I've used this at a few different companies and they tend to stay very similar, right? A lot of times you want to innovate in a space, you're already delivering maybe a service or a platform, right? So you've kind of got a couple strategies already built in. I would say a lot of companies that I've worked for have said, hey, we need to get really good about partnering with our customers. We're not so good at it, right? And that doesn't have to be the customer that's like outside of your business. That could be your business partner, right? That could be your team that you're partnering with now to build whatever it is you're building internally to your company, right? That doesn't have to be externally facing. And then I always like to include, like, how do you strengthen your organization? And what does that look like? How do you grow your people, right? Because that really aligns with what's that enduring impact that you want to have on the project, right? Your enduring impact may be that you grew an entire team, right? And that's amazing. And that's awesome. And those employees and that team are probably going to remember that forever, right? And remember working for you because you grew that team and you grew them, right? So this is awesome. I've also seen where like in the green boxes, so we do strategy, the high level mission and value, we can do a strategy item, describe it a little, maybe give some, like in some cases I've added projects here that we're working on, like, oh, I want to innovate in project management. Maybe I want to build an AI tool that helps my project managers, right? That may be a project that's down in the green. I've also seen teams where then they add their KPIs below this. Well, how am I being measured on innovating in project management, right? And that kind of goes back to that data concept of like, well, how did okay, I'm saying what I'm going to do here, right? I'm leading with my strategy and I'm going to say what we're going to do. And then how do I measure and do what I say, right? And how do I make sure that I did that? And so I've also seen people add to this that KPI item at the bottom. This is one of my favorite slides because you guys talked about how like, well, maybe I don't know what the vision is. This is a one-page vision statement, right? This is a one-page, very clear, like, this is what we're going to do. And this does not have to take eons to build, right? This can be built for a single project. This could be built for a single team. In my current role, I have one of these for my team, right? And we look at it every month, right? And is that where we're still leaning? Is that where we're still going from a strategy point of view? Right. So I would say this is very, very scalable in that regard. And this is also my favorite way of explaining, you know, uh, OKRs and KPIs, right? Like this is a lot easier way to kind of like start to build those. And if you've read John Doerr, right, Measure What Matters, that book is fabulous around how do I measure what matters in my business. And some of the things he talks about are those ambitious goals, right? Where those ambitious strategy items, making sure everyone's aligned on what these are and making sure they're transparent, right? This shouldn't be hidden on your OneDrive or your Google Drive, right? This should be, on your SharePoint. This should be visible to teams and to others, right? And then how do I continuously improve on it? So how do we start to like take this? So we've done the vision, we've done the mission and goals, we kind of have a strategy. Well, how do we start building data behind this and building kind of like data-driven decisions around this? And what kind of framework would that look like? Because you guys probably have, I don't know, a daily stand-up, maybe you have a weekly team meeting, maybe you have a monthly business review. What kind of meetings do we have out there where we feel like we're covering all of this? I would say there's some interesting ways to start to think about, again, like rethink what we've built. Maybe we don't need to have all of those. Maybe we need to start to think about how could I have this in a more effective way, right? How can I be more transparent and show this vision in a more effective way? So I'll say, I start to look at, okay, now that we have this, how do we start capturing the data and making it visible to teams? My second step is always creating a scorecard for projects. And that scorecard should be shared with everybody, right? And then I truly believe that when you start capturing this data, you start building a scorecard that your team has built, right? And you start sharing this with folks, that starts to drive that culture of like transparency that you want to get to, and that accountability that you want in your projects. And it starts to solve some of those problems that we may have had in the future or in the past around like what drove us to be to fray our edges on our project, right? What kind of data can I show that says we do have resource scarcity, we need more people in this space? Oh, interesting question. Brian says, is this a scorecard for project or a scorecard for the outcome? It can be both. And I'll show you a few examples where it doesn't have to be project-based. It could be team-based. It could also be, I've done a lot of product work where we run a lot of projects, but it could be a scorecard that's based on the product, right? And so we're going to see just shortly a few examples of this that I've used. So one example would be a business team. So say you're new to project management, or you just want to start to know more about your team and how they're doing. And in this case, this data, again, totally made up. This is a contracts team, right? So what they're doing, they're not managing projects in a lot of ways, but they're managing a whole bunch of contracts, right? And so what would their success metrics look like for their team, right? And so I made up a few things like percentage of contracts with an approved template. Well, why the heck would I pick that, right? Well, maybe they're fraying at the edge because the customers aren't using the template that they need to effectively manage their work, and they're getting a lot of feedback or a lot of kickbacks on these projects because they can't get it in the approved template, right? A percentage of contracts with basic information included the first time. Again, like, well, maybe they're just not getting all of the stuff that they wanted. My favorite always is contracts that need to be expedited. This is a sign, right? When we talked about, what are the things we're seeing? Like, well, the loudest person in the room is screaming and saying, I need this one expedited. Well, you didn't even fill in the template. You didn't give us enough information, right? Like, let's start to manage that and measure it and see what it is, and then make it very transparent to the business what we're managing and what we're measuring, right? It's always interesting. I would say I get a lot of feedback about when someone sees one of these for the first time, and they're like, oh, this would take a lot for us to do. This would take a lot for us to build. And this is another place where I'll challenge you and say, this one I built in PowerPoint, and each of those charts are just a chart in Excel, right? Like when we talk about starting and starting small, you can start there, right? You don't need an entire analytics teams to pull this metrics for you, right? You can start really small and start measuring how your team is doing or how they think that they're doing, right? One of my other favorites, I used to manage a help desk, right? And so we'd always say, well, how long has this ticket been in queue, right? And that's another average contracts in the pipeline. Like how many contracts do I have? How many am I working? The other thing I would say about these metrics is make sure that when you're doing them, you're measuring both sides of the fence. So the first time I went through this, I had a team who said, oh, like we're going to measure ticket count, right? Ticket count tells us how much work we're doing. And I'm like, that's great. That tells you how you're doing. It doesn't tell you what the customer feels, right? And so what the customer feels is how long it's taken for you to respond to that ticket, right? The customer feels like, how long has this been in queue, right? So I would say the one thing to make sure as you do these is make sure you're getting metrics that maybe measure both sides of the fence if you can, right? That won't always be the case, but like make sure that you can get a good mix of what those look like. Project metrics, very similar, right? You can start to think about, like Brian, you said, can we do this for a scorecard for a project, right? You could start to look at like, okay, per project, total budget. How am I doing on my budget, right? How am I doing on requirements? Am I getting requirements like every 2 days, like new ones? Like what is happening there? Why is that happening, right? Is my total spend over my budget, right? Or is it not? Or am I under budget? I love the open risks ones. I work on a lot of security projects, right? And this is always a concern of like, okay, well, where are we from a security point of view on our risks, and how many are open and how many have we mitigated, right? And we can start to kind of measure those very quickly, right? And then one of my favorites is also talking about like per product. So if you're managing a product, right, those could look very different. When I helped, manage the video streaming service, it was about availability and stability, right? Like those were key, and that measured, like again, that measured my side, right? How we were doing on the technology side, but also measured how available and stable was it for the customer, right? That's a metric that kind of measures both sides of the house, right? And those are made up numbers because ours were closer to 100, but when they blipped, we wanted to know why, right? Customer satisfaction is a great one for product in the product space, right? Like your CSAT scores, if you've done a CSAT, how are they doing? How are they improving? One of my favorites, and also not my favorites, feature intake, right? How many feature requests are getting requested of my product, right? I love and hate this one because as a product manager, I love it. I love seeing feedback. I love seeing my customers give me that. as a user of maybe one of those systems, I feel like it goes into a black box and it never comes out, right? And like, what happened to it? I've got a few of those for Jira. If anyone else has some for Jira, I have those. Um, but like, what does that look like? How many features are we accepting versus saying, nope, sorry, we're not going to do those, right? But these are like 6 metrics, and you can tell like I did 6 metrics on each of these, right? It's kind of a sweet spot in regards to like what I've seen around like, well, what will truly measure how my team is doing? Um, you can also see that these aren't like how I would like maybe define KPIs or OKRs in some ways that maybe you have done with your business, right? Or done like they are different. I know even with my company now, I have KPIs. They may not look like this, but they talk to you about how your project is doing, how your product is doing, how your team is doing, right? So very fun way to do it, very easy way to put this together, right? Um, and so once you have this, like, okay, well, that's great. I'm tracking metrics, right? I love this because it's like, okay, I'm tracking metrics, but what do I do? Or I'm tracking metrics, but no one ever sees them, or we don't ever do anything with them, or why does it matter, right? And this is where I think the kind of rubber meets the road. Yeah, that's the right. The rubber meets the road as like, okay, well, what does that look like to start making our teams accountable to this, start being very transparent in what this looks like. So how I do that is every month I do what's called a monthly project review. I've called it that. I've called it monthly operations review. I've called it monthly product review, right? And the goal of this is really to sit down together as a team and really start to drive that going back, right, to that vision, that strategy, and that goal, right, around how do I deliver things, right, and how is my project doing, and how can I be very open and transparent about that. And so I think if you're going to start to do kind of a monthly project review, and maybe you're already doing one, right? But this goes back to maybe I should rethink how I'm doing that, right? Because when I start to look at a monthly project review, I look at it very differently than probably I have looked at it in the past, right? And how I define that is kind of through a couple principles. I've worked with companies who have these, right? And I've worked for companies and I've actually hosted these where sometimes we say we're going to do it and we do it for 2 months and then we don't do it for the third month. And then someone gets busy and we reschedule it and we don't do it. These are definitely principles for kind of hosting what would be a monthly operations review or projects review. You have to do it every month, right? You have to build this muscle, right? And if someone can't attend or the host can attend or the facility can attend, get someone in their place, right? Do everything you can to have this meeting no matter what every month and be accountable to it. My other principle is run it like a scrum. There is, you all know, I'm sure I get the whole webinar chat lit up about like, you all know when you go to a meeting and you're like, oh my God, this meeting is taking forever. Why are we doing this? Why are we here? Right? We don't want that. So I like to say, run it like a scrum. How can we have that simple scorecard, right? So that one simple scorecard, how can we show it, give a team 5 to 10 minutes, and we move on to the next team. 5 to 10 minutes, move on to the next team, right? Kind of like a daily stand-up, right? I would also say this takes a very focused facilitator for this meeting. You can't have someone that's not willing to be like, hey, we're moving on. Take that offline, right? Otherwise, you're not going to run it like a scrum. Like these are good. This is a good learning opportunity for, Scrum masters, if you have those, maybe project coordinators who are learning to run meetings to sit through these and see how how you can kind of have a focused facilitator run these. The next one is like each team gets 6 metrics only. You don't get more and you don't get less. You get 6, right? And you should be ready to talk about those 6 metrics and questions related to them. Why did it blip? Why is your revenue down? Why is your availability up when last month it was down, right? Like how are you doing as an organization, right? And what does that mean? I always like to say, let's have all the metrics posted the day prior, at least for review from the team. Some teams can do this sooner, right? Like maybe have it a week prior. I just always say a day prior because people are procrastinators. They're always going to wait until the last moment to be like, oh, I guess I should have done that. And this is where then the next principle is like, how do we build that transparency? I like to say everyone is invited to this meeting. One of these that I led, we had 150 people in our organization. Everyone was invited, but only certain folks are required. And why do I say that? Because these metrics are how the organization starts to measure the teams. And the teams should know what they should have helped build those metrics first, but they should also be included in like, well, how are you doing? And what does that look like? And if someone mentions something about them, the team member should be able to speak up and be like, hey, we measure that because of XYZ, right? They should be involved in that. This is always interesting because I get feedback from leadership. Well, we don't ever want everyone just sitting on a call, right? Don't just sit on a call. Well, again, we go back to let's make it focused. Let's make it run like a scrum so that it doesn't turn into a meeting that's just like everyone's there. Why are they there? What does it look like? And again, going back to continuous learning, like always retro, always learn from the last meeting, always learn from what you're doing, right? So just a few more tidbits on that. Like I like to say, run it with Agile methodologies. Quick 5 to 10 minutes for each team. Always do a retrospective at the end. We're going to talk about that in a minute because I think there are different ways you can do retrospectives and how they're related to kind of what we're building. Always capture the actions for the next month because there will be some, right? And then I would say always allow the team members to change the metrics month to month. And that doesn't mean they should flip all of their metrics, but sometimes you start talking about like, oh, this metric is maybe measuring our ticket count, right? And then we realize, well, do we really care about measuring how many tickets we get in, or do we actually care more about the tickets that are older than 90 days because something's wrong, something's broken in our process. We're not doing something correctly. Do we care about that? Well, let's change it then. Change the metric. It's okay to change it. We should be able to do that very quickly, right? And it should be okay for the team to do that and question it. Allow the team to kind of come to a group understanding about where they want to go with this meeting, right? I'll give you an example. When I worked for a group, we acquired a company and we soon went from having 5 product teams to having 30 product teams. So with 5 product teams, we were running this process and having a monthly ops review. And then all of a sudden we had 30 product teams, right? And you can't do 30 teams 5 to 10 minutes. Like you're in hours of this meeting, right? And so we started to look at and say, again, rethink what we've built. Well, maybe for 1 month, we're going to take the top 10 products that have had, recent issues or maybe recently released products, and those teams go first. And this is where it comes into, you already filled out your slide's sitting out there, everyone can see it and review it. If we have questions, we can bring it up. But like we scaled this meeting because like you can't, no, we're not sitting in a meeting for 3.5 hours to do this. That doesn't make sense, right? So we came to kind of a group understanding of like, okay, we're going to cover the first 5 to 10 products, and these are what they'll be next month. And then the next month they changed, right? And it was a good way to do that. Why do I always say run a retrospective? Oh, I love retrospectives. I think that they will tell us so much about how we're doing things. And this, like I said, this is related to like, okay, if you're running a monthly ops review or a monthly project review and it's a single project, right? This is a great way to every month just go, hey, how are we doing? Like this in the last month, what made us sad, glad, and mad? And I love sad, mad, and glad because I think it is funny. You can turn it into different things and it brings out the emotions in people that maybe they wouldn't have brought out if you just said, can we start doing? Can we keep doing? Can we stop doing? Right? Like make it a little fun. Like have some fun with it. What made me mad? Teams make me mad. Like why can't Microsoft do better? Right? But what made me glad? Oh my gosh, we released XYZ, or oh my gosh, John or Betty did this, right? Those are things that like you can do quickly, and I would say very quickly. 5 minutes to enter cards, 5 minutes to go through it, right? And people can start to see that. Um, this also helps kind of get tension out. So I would say if you're doing it for a project, it's really great. Now, say we're doing those 30 teams. Well, how the heck, what would a retrospective look like for those 30 teams? In that case, the retrospective was about the process, was about the monthly ops review. How is this meeting going? Is it going well? Should we change something? What makes us sad about this meeting? What makes us mad about this meeting, right? So we would reframe the retrospective depending on the size, the scale of what that looked like. Um, there are some keys to look out for. I like to say, watch out for witch hunts. The quickest way to dissolve trust that you guys all talked about was like, was going after people, going after teams, going after like, oh my gosh, your metrics aren't good. Oh my gosh, why were you not available? Right? Like, oh my gosh, you didn't resolve that incident, right? Those are things you don't want to do, right? So watch out for witch hunts and you should stop them, nip them in the bud. Don't do them, right? Watch out for comparing teams. Same thing, right? Like John's team didn't do this, but Jill's team did, right? Like, no, like what does that look like? Comparing people, oh, don't. Just even worse. Like, don't do that, right? Again, I keep reiterating this. Don't get bogged down in process. This can really be a truly simple process. It does take work. I'm not saying that, right? And it does take effort, but don't get bogged down in what all the things could be. And what do I mean by that? And I funnily got these pictures, these next couple pictures from AI when I, told Chat GPT, what won't work for me? Give me a picture of it, and this is what it gave me. But I've had people tell me this process won't work with Agile. It won't work for a project management office. It won't work in DevOps. It won't work with the Waterfall team. Like it won't work with our team directly. Oh, we couldn't implement that. Oh, no, our management won't get behind that. Our customers won't like this, and our business lines won't like this, right? And I like to say I don't believe any of them. I have seen them work in every single situation, and I would say like customers will be like, oh, well, you're spending time doing this. Yeah, it makes us better able to serve you in the future. It makes, if you're doing quarterly business reviews with customers, right? External customers, it makes it easy. You already have data, you have metrics, you've already talked about what may have happened in the past, right? People talk about DevOps and Agile. It won't work on an alpha technology team. Couldn't disagree more. Seen it done, done it, right? Like it's a really good space to be able to drive teams that are highly innovative and highly disciplined in that way to be like, how can you be better? Right? Like we're measuring this about you, but like, how can you be better about that? How do we get better? It kind of feeds into some of those value streams that people have in those spaces. I've also heard things like this, but I need a data warehouse built to get all my data. How many of you heard that? How many of you have said that? I've said that. I've been there. I need people to build this slide deck because this slide deck is too much. It's really not. It's 6 graphs on one slide, right? And those graphs are tied to a simple Excel spreadsheet. I need a data analyst to do this for me, right? Like I've heard that one too. Or this will take forever to update. Those 30 teams that we built this for, we got to a place where you could update, and we were doing the data manually at the time because we didn't have a warehouse. But like if that data that we entered manually, it took about 20 minutes for us to get it into the slide deck. I would say the one thing that it does take time is understanding it, right? Like if you look at that and you pull it up and you're like, oh my gosh, why did our ticket count drop? Oh my gosh, why did our revenue drop? The part that's going to take the time is that analysis, right? But that's a good thing. And that's something you should already be doing. And that's something you're like, oh, like what happened to our revenue? Oh, we lost 4 customers, right? What happens here? And so it's interesting to be like, like how do you start again simply in this? I would also say that this scales, and I talked a little bit about it. Like you can use this idea for single PM on your team. You could use this for multiple projects you're managing, right? To like maybe you need to pull all of those project teams together and kind of make them standardized and maybe they're all operating differently. So you want to get them all together and be like, hey, this is how this team's doing it, and this is how this team's doing. And then you can start to feed, like those teams start to feed off like, oh, well, what if we did it that way? Would that help? Right? Like, how can we drive that change and that leadership? A PMO can do this for a portfolio. I used to help manage a operations team at a national laboratory, and we did this for the operations portfolio. A CTO could use this for all their product teams. Talked a little bit about that. And a CEO could use this with their leaders, with their direct reports. You could use this with your direct reports if you're a manager, right? About how your team's operating, right? I would say there's quite a few risks involved in this. Don't jump into technology. I love tech. I've worked for a lot of tech companies, but like, don't jump right into the technology solution for this. Start simple. If you jump into the technology solution, this is getting bogged down in process, right? Just start simple and start doing it, right? You can figure out the technology after the fact and you can start building that into your process if it makes sense, right? The other part I see is people jump into the technology and then they get so tied to it that they're like, oh, we can't change our metrics. We can't change our KPI because that changes everything, right? Like, let this burn a little. Let this play out and see if that makes sense for your team and your company. The risks of transparency. This one is one of my favorites. Everyone says they want something to be transparent, right? They want to be able to be like, I saw the metrics, like let's talk about everything until they have to do it, right? Until they have to go to that meeting and say, I lost 5 customers, our revenue is down $100,000. And like, okay, like that is hard to do, right? The better thing to do is be like, we lost 5 customers, we're down $100,000, and this is what we're doing about it, right? So everyone says they want transparency until it is. So be okay with like people have to adjust. You have to build that trust. You have to be okay, and that's why we don't like witch hunts. We want to encourage people to ask questions and talk during this process. And then y'all know, change is hard. That's why we keep going back to like, you have to have these meetings, you have to build the muscle, you have to talk about it, you have to be transparent because it's hard. It's hard for people to understand, it's hard for people to visualize where you're getting to. So I like to say, okay, well, that's cool, but what's next? Um, I would say jump in, build it, have fun. Like what does this look like for you? And I would also say, all right, so like I shared a lot of like how I operate internally. How are y'all going to go back to your organization and create enduring impact today? And did this help? Did this kind of like, bring out some ideas around what this would look like for your team or your organization or your PMO or what you're doing? Maybe it's your home project. Maybe someone's doing, building something at home and they want to do that. I don't know. What does that look like? So how are you creating an enduring impact today? Anyone? Anyone? Such a quiet group on most of these.
I did see a hand clap and I saw heart, so some good stuff.
Right. Any questions? Any helpful hints that I love helpful hints or feedback on what people would add to this. Could we see the business team metric? Ooh, you all went at the same time. Could we, business team metric slide? Sure. Are you in let me click back. This one is specific for contracts. I just built one of these for actually for PMI around our new website. And so there's kind of like, in my case, there's 3 metrics that kind of measure how we're doing on our website and website usage for the PMI. I also just built one similar to this for my IT team that I'm managing. Maddie, going back to basic tools in Excel and PowerPoint. I know I forget about them sometimes too. Yeah. Yeah. Megan, we're very data driven, so this is just reinforcing it. Without data, it's hard to know if you're winning or losing, right? And we all want to win. We all want to win. Yeah. And Rachel, great ideas that can be incorporated quickly. Yes, they definitely can.
And I didn't type it in, Dana, but just the simplicity of it.
Yes.
All too often, it's easy to get caught up in making things complex.
Yeah, I've worked on things where you've spent out days in meetings building KPIs, days, right? And this doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. Awesome. Well, if you have any questions, I'm out there on LinkedIn. Happy to answer anything or, chat about this or and then find me at your local PMI events and Professional Development Day. Just got a few hours left to sign up for Friday.
Coming up on Friday. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So, well, thank you.
All right. Hey, well, thanks, Dana. Thanks, team, for joining us today. Next month, we'll be hearing from Ann Smith. And by the way, she's one of the speakers at our Professional Development Day this coming Friday. So you'll get a chance to have a follow-up session with Ann at next month's Lunch and Learn. So thanks again. Everyone have a great rest of your day.